I bet that you've never greased your window winders. Probably unless you're fully restoring a car, you don't even think about these little suckers. They go up and down all the time, and you just don't ever do a thing with them. Well, after the break, we're gonna be talking about doing a thing with them. So stick around and watch out, because we're coming at you with window winders.
For 45 years, the Miller family and the dedicated staff at Autocrafters have been here helping you to restore your dream Ford. Thank you for your support. Here's to another 45 years of delivering parts for your Falcon, Fairlane, F100, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto.
All right, so what I've got here on the table is a 1967 Mustang window winder assembly, but what I'm going to be talking about, Ford used this design on pretty much everything up until right into the early 1970s, late 1960s. Some of the hard tops started using a different assembly in there right around 1969. And when they changed that assembly, a lot of what you're seeing right here kind of went away. But what I'm going to discuss now is the early cars, anything, let's just call it 1968 on back into the early 60s. This kind of window winder was what Ford liked to use. And I'm going to go over some of the points on these for lubrication. Now, when you take them out of the car, that is absolutely the best time to lubricate these things up, get them ready to go back into the car. You could even stick them into a big thing of Evaporust so that you clean up all of the problems. Not necessary, but it can help you out a little bit. So first thing I'm going to discuss is lubrication points. This one is a little different because it has a scissors mechanism in it. So what I like to use in these cases is super lube, but I can't get super lube down inside this point to grease it. And this is a swedged item. You're not going to take this apart to put grease down in there. So what I'll use is Gibbs oil. I like Gibbs oil because it doesn't jack with you when you're trying to paint the car. It's a fine machine oil. It'll do enough in this scissor area in order to make things right. Moving on from the scissors, I'm going to talk about these guys here. Now these are rollers. This one is in okay shape. It does not spin. They should spin a little bit. If they don't, I wouldn't get too hinky on trying to make them spin. The only reason it can be a problem is if you've got one where they've not done any lubrication since day one, and you've got flat spots on here where your channels run. You'll have a channel that runs along here, say, and this slides back and forth inside that channel. If your winder rollers are okay, what I would recommend doing is put super lube down inside the channels. Now I'm going to have guys who are going to argue with me and say, yes, but they originally used white lithium grease. Yes, they did, but I am not a big fan of white lithium grease now. I find that white lithium grease can get really chunky and start to almost chalk up, which doesn't do anything for lubrication. The super lube will get in there and it'll really make that work very nicely, and it doesn't, as far as I've seen so far in the cars I've done, decay out like you would see the white lithium grease do occasionally. Moving on from there, I'm going to flip this thing over temporarily and we can talk about the lubrication point here. You have a lubrication point that is kind of like your other one back down on the other end of the arm here. This is a point that you're not going to really get to with the super lube. I honestly will a lot of times use motorcycle chain lube down in here. And I know some people are going to say, oh, you don't want to use that because of whatever. It's just something that I found that works in order to get into these areas and give you some good lubrication. Probably, in my opinion, might be a little better to do something like the Gibbs oil that we use in here because it's going to work a little bit better to really get down in there and lubricate these areas. Another place that I will use a super lube is down on this end of your sun gear. You'll notice along the sun gear here, there's a pinpoint on the main bracket, like a dimple that pushes down on the sun gear, and you can see where it's been running along the sun gear for years and years. Zero lubrication in a lot of these areas. This has not had any lube put on it in ages. This is a place that I would use my super lube if I have everything out of the car. And you'll know why I say that when we go out and look at the 66 Falcon we're working on. You'll want to try to put some super lube on this and lubricate this up real well. You'll see you also have a lubrication point here. This lubrication point, you can probably go in around that bump out there and throw in a little bit of Gibbs oil to get that to where it's lubricated. There's also a lubing point on the back side of this, and I'll turn it back over so we can talk about the rest of it. Now for lubrication on this side, you can't really see it, but you can see the remains of it, so to speak, where it has a point that is contacting the sun gear. I would go in and put some lubrication on here and just crank this thing back and forth to get lubrication down on that pinpoint on the back side of this. Last lubrication point, probably one of the most vital, is your lube point for your crank itself. This is the end for the crank, and you'll see that it's put in with pop rivets, and you don't want to take this apart if you don't have to. I tend to take this area and just absolutely flood it with Gibbs oil. If I can get on the back side of it at all, I'll probably put some chain lube down inside of here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you outside and we're going to talk about the 66 Falcon that we're working on, show you how to take a door panel off of one of these old Fords, the typical things that they have, and then we're going to show you how we lube everything up while it's still in the car. It's easy enough to talk about lubing it up on the tabletop, but once you get out there and you start working with that sucker in the car, all bets are off and everything changes. And Ford had different mechanism systems. Some of them are just a straight single bar, and that's exactly what is in our 1966 Falcon. Out the door, down the road. All right, so we're out here at Jackson's 1966 Falcon. This is basically a Fairlane, for lack of a better way to put it. You could take the Falcon front end right off of this car, put a Fairlane nose on it, and nobody'd be the wiser, except for some of the things toward the back of the car. Tail lights and all that are a little bit different, and the Fairlane tail section is a little longer. But the cage, the central part of this car, is the same. I'm going to talk a little bit about window cranks and door operation parts. On 1966 and later cars, this is done with an Allen fastener. I'm not sure what size this is. I go through these and look for the one that matches a hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and remove the window crank and the door latch so that I can do what I need to do. And these just slip off of the splining. Something you'll want to get from the guys at Autocrafters if you're doing this and these are missing are these, because what can happen if you don't have the plastic pieces here, they can actually eat up the perimeter around here and put a hole in your door panel. Obviously, this door panel, not such a big concern because quite frankly, we're going to take these and we're probably going to have to make custom door panels for it because, look at the door panel. Setting all this stuff down in the bottoms here. I'm going to take the window crank out next. These two have to come off in order to take the door panel out. All right, so what's next is the armrest, but I'm going to talk about something real briefly here. If you have an earlier than 66 Ford, most of the time you're going to be using one of these tools. What I'm showing you right now is us taking the window crank off of our 1963 Galaxy hardtop. This is the tool you would use for that activity. 9 chances out of 10 you're going to send that C-clip out across the ground. If you do, make sure you find it if it is the original, because I'm going to tell you what, they are of a much better quality than what some of the stuff you get right now. If you can save your originals to put them into the new window winders and stuff that you're going to be putting on the car, probably good idea. Now, early cars, the armrests were put in with Phillips head screws. These are like a big format screw. I'm going to have to pull one out and show it to you here in just a second. These are not your standard Phillips screw. These are more like a self-tapping screw that they used. Speed screw maybe would be a good term for it. Pull this out and show it to you. But there are 2 of them under here. This is a screw style. You'll notice it's got a big, broad, flat head, holds the armrest in place. There are 2 of them in almost every Ford application that has an armrest like this. Later cars used a 3/8 bolt rather than the screw, probably because of the amount of trouble I'm having right here finding the correct spot. Armrests are available from the guys at Autocrafters. We'll be replacing these even if we use a custom door panel. I might try to save my bases on this and keep the original black plastic base, because that's kind of neat that it's like that, because The Falcon was a fairly base model car, so I might keep these, but we will replace these armrest pads. All right, now we're to the next point on this. All of our stuff has been removed off the door, and some thoughtful soul has gone in and screwed the door panel to the actual door itself. That's not factory. These are actually supposed to be clips. And if I can get this door panel off cleanly, I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. There should be clip points on the back side of this, probably here, and it looks to me like those are just gone away on this one, on the back side anyway. Now, if you did have the original stuff, what I recommend getting yourself is a set of tools like this one here. This is basically a trim tool that you can buy at Harbor Freight, different places like that. And if the clips were in there, you can stick this in there around where the clip is. Find the clip, locate it, put this out around it, and pop it off the door. There may be some clips still in place on the front up here. There is one. So I'm going to try to get this one to pop off. The problem is a lot of times these door panels are so old they just explode. You don't get to have those clips anymore because they'll explode off of there. Door panels like this, in order to take them off, you're going to want to slip your hand inside the door panel if you can. You can also use a piece of wood to do this. You're just going to pop it out and pull it up. Amazingly, this door still has its original shields, which will be nice because I'll give you a tip on this. I never reuse the original shields. I will almost always go in and buy a humongous contractor bags from the home improvement stores. I also get them at like Dollar General here in the United States, which if you're in the South, there's a Dollar General about every quarter mile. So you can get these at Dollar General. They're big enough to cover this whole section. And I will use one of two things. I'll either use windshield weather strip for like later model cars. Like this car actually uses a glue-in windshield. I'll use that product, or I'll also either sometimes go in and use a product like, I don't know, contact adhesive will work just as well. I don't like contact adhesive as much because it's kind of a mess trying to pull them back out. The windshield weather strip adhesive works much better in here. All right, now you're here and you're like, okay, cool. I want to see what my window winders look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crank, pop it on here. I'm going to pull it down. There's your one and only on a four-door slider section right here. It has the same style button that I showed you in the studio space, but this is just a little bit different down in here. And by the way, while you're here, you should also go in and lubricate your latching, your locking mechanisms, because those can get pretty gnarly, and also the backside of your bear claw latches as well, because again, it's something that almost never sees any kind of lubrication. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go grab my lubrication and go ahead and just try to squirt around and mess around, and I'll try rolling the windows up and down. You can see that it's a little better than what we got going on. These actually aren't too bad, but I've got some sticking that I'm feeling inside of here. So I think a little bit of lubrication will probably help that. And then I'm also going to lube my run channel as well. I'll go grab that stuff and get to it. All right, so I have my I have all my lubrication stuff here now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the lock system, because I'm going to go ahead and go in here. You're not going to be able to actually see me do this, but I am going to go in and throw some lubrication. And if you get lubrication and oil down inside the door, it's not going to hurt anything, because all you're doing is just, keeping it from rusting as much. You're going to want to work it a little bit. Okay, so I see I've got to get up inside of here, and this is where it can get kind of tricky for what to do. Yeah, I could have gone in from the top, I know. And all I'm doing is just going in and lubricating all of these points. Again, if you can take it out of the car, it's so much easier to do, but if you can't, little bit better, not quite what I want. Okay, that's that one. I'm going to keep moving on other things. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my window crank off, and I'm going to squirt the lubricant down inside of that hole or that opening right there. It can get messy. You'll probably have to do some cleanup afterwards if you get the stuff on your doors. That's a little bit better, but I think probably what's going to happen is we've got a situation where, yeah, that's much better. There's a problem, probably on the sun gear. It's probably running into some crud. But before I deal with the crud, I'm going to take my super lube and do a dab-a-doo-ya. Yep, I just squirted that sucker full of super lube, and it'll probably plop down in the bottom of the door panel. But it will also drag the super lube along with it. Again, if it's lubricating the inside of the door, what do I care? Already starting to see a lot of improvement. So now I'm going to grab my bicycle chain lube. All right, I've already lubricated the one of the rolling points up in this area up here. I'm showing you that on video right now, and I'm going to take and roll the window down. You can see how much nicer that is. I'm going to do another thing now. I'm going to try to take my flashlight, look up in here and see if I can get some of this chain lube in there on the sun gear itself. Would you like fries with that? There's only so much that you can do with the window glass in here because your division bar is going to greatly influence what happens. This little fuzzy piece that goes in here, you'll need to replace this whole entire piece in order to get a good clean run. And if you're really doing this, you need to go ahead and just pull all the window winders out and grease and lube everything outside of the car. But this just shows you what you can achieve just by going in and winding them up with a little bit of lubrication on the outside. I'm going to put a little bit more. I'm going to pull this off and throw a little bit more down inside of the crank itself. That actually sounds pretty good. It's not sticky at all. The nice thing is, on a four-door, you get to do this 3 more times. Yeah, that's pretty good. A little bit of a stick at the bottom, but that could be the division bar weather strip. All right, so that's it, folks. That's the way things go around here. That shows you a real quick video on how to go in and lubricate these things just by pulling the door panel off and doing a little bit of due diligence. Don't forget to lubricate the door latches as well. While you're in there, throw a little bit of lubrication all over that stuff just to make them work a little bit better. Again, something that could be taken out and done otherwise. You guys do me a favor and be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. Nice color. He wants to go back maroon. I has my concerns because of the car itself. Cut for the moment. Unless you just want to stay live, and I'll just grab your stuff and come back in. Whichever you would prefer. like a bloody vulture up there.